Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to our show. We're going to have a very interesting show today. I'll be your host, Brother Benjamin Shabazz, and our very special guest today is Brother Lynn Lucas. How you doing, Brother Lynn?
Thank you for having me.
All right, glad
Brother
to
Benjamin.
have you. Yes, sir. It's a pleasure, my brother. It's a pleasure. We're going to open up the show with a short prayer, so for those who want to join us, A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. With the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, we ask that God allow us to be successful in our endeavor today. Ameen. Okay, so Brother Lynn, we want to talk a little bit today about the group that we belong to called the Men of the Middle Passage.
Yes, Man of the Middle Passage.
So, but before we get into that, because I'm looking at my notes, I want to ask you a few things about yourself.
So professionally, I'm a teacher. I teach general education primarily to primary grade students through 12th grade, but I've done work with adults as well. My specialty in education has been for many years the arts, specializing in arts integration. That's bringing arts into the service of core curriculum. So helping teachers be able to use the arts to help students understand better math, science, whatever it is they're learning in the classroom. In addition to helping them to utilize the arts as a tool for their own self-expression, for expressing things about their communities, their environment, their ideas about their lives, both in the present, in the past, as well as the future. So that's been the focus for many years. And I was based here in Seattle for almost 30 years. And in 2014, I moved to Portland, where I continued that work down there, and more recently moved to Tucson, Arizona, where I was teaching second grade up until just the end of this year. And next year I'm planning to move back up the ladder in terms of the ages of students and be working with middle school students again. So I'm teaching and learning at the same time, and I think that's always important to be doing.
So your field is education, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the arts. Arts is, they don't have a lot of arts in some of these schools now. They're taking it out.
They don't, and I know here in Seattle, even as I was leaving, there was a big push to get the arts back into school. There's a program through For Culture called Creative Advantage, which has really aimed at creating a closer partnership between working artists and teaching artists in the community and bringing them into schools to partner with teachers. And that program seems to be doing very well. They're doing a lot of professional development with artists so that when they do go into classrooms, they really know how to effectively communicate their lessons to students, as well as working with teachers, so that there's really a strong collaborative element when you do bring the arts into the classroom. And I'm hoping, and I think folks here who are part of that program are hoping that the success of it and the way that it improves student performances in schools and classrooms will really inspire people to really want to refocus on prioritizing the arts again as an integral part of every student's learning. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's a beautiful thing, man. Because art is an vehicle of self-expression.
Yeah, it's who we are. I think long before there were computers, even before there were books, the ways that we recorded and documented, understood, encoded and decoded the world was in pictograms, was in our bodies through dance, was in our voices through song. So, I've always said that, art education is not extra. It is core curriculum. I mean, it is, you know, it is who we are.
Exactly. It's not extra. It shouldn't be looked at
Yeah.
as extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, my brother. Uh, so, you want to talk a little bit about MMP now?
Absolutely. You know, the Men of the Middle Passage. So when, you know, in the years since I've left Seattle, one of the few things that I miss here is Men of the Middle Passage, which, you know, I feel a great pride in having been with from its inception back in, was it 2011 roughly? And this idea of bringing black men together where they can exchange ideas, find and utilize their voices, connect with themselves at the deepest level, and then connect also with each other and the community beyond, is something that I have to say, initially I wasn't sure how it spoke to me, and the longer I remained involved with the group, the more I could see how powerful and relevant it is. Especially, you know, it seems it becomes more and more relevant given the, you know, the socio-cultural forces in our environment that are really pushing us as people of color really to the edges of the society. I think, you know, finding and creating those places for ourselves where we can actualize our own power is so vital. So I think the work that the group does and will do in the future as it continues to grow and become more aligned and more varied in the work that it does in the community. I think, you know, I'm always excited about coming back and touching base and finding out how the group has grown.
So, you're saying Men in the Middle Passage, so how did that name come about?
As with many things at the beginning of the group, I think it came about through lots of intense discussion. I think we all agreed from the start that the focal point of the group and the demographic that the group was targeting was men of color. And I think we did wrestle a lot with defining men of color in terms of ethnic background and heritage, and, you know, and it became complex because I think we as men of African descent living in the diaspora have gone through many changes in terms of what our ancestry is. And so, you know, talking about any name that alluded to shades of skin became problematic because it excluded whole, you know, sections of people who identify and rightly identify themselves as black people. And so really we decided, or at least this is what I recall, we decided that we really wanted something that encompassed our experience as people here, black men living in the United States, but that also connected us back to our ancestral heritage, and that also could be inclusive enough that it took into account those ancestral lines that may have strayed from the African path. So, but that we're still part and rooted in that space. So, you know, I thought it was ultimately a very you know, poetic name. You know, I still thrilled to. I think, yes, this is exactly the right note.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you were the one who developed our logo.
Yes, I was.
Yeah,
It was my privilege to
maybe we can
work
show
on
the
that.
show the logo on the screen now. It'll be up there in a minute. And also we have an idea or a concept because we have a card there,
Mhm.
and it gives you. There's the logo right there, Men of the Middle Passage. So could you explain what that design represents?
So, taking into account the various interests and concerns of people in the group, I tried to come up with an image that would kind of synthesize the ideas that we were trying to express in the name. That we were a group that would be composed of men of African descent. That much of what we did and do was about looking at ourselves, reflecting on our experiences, but doing that in a way that really is empowering us to move forward and not be stuck in the concerns and the challenges that the past has presented to us, both individually and collectively. So I think the logo really spoke to that. The central image there is the Sankofa, which is a very common image that we see even here in the Americas. The Sankofa is also symbolized in the bird there, which is at the top of the image. And the Sankofa bird is a mythical creature who can crane its head 180 degrees to look behind itself in order to protect its young. And as a symbol, that's often interpreted as the idea that we look to the past in order to chart our course for the future and to learn from the past in order to create a better future. And I thought that symbol very perfectly and eloquently captured a lot of what we wanted. There's little textual elements around the logo that again spoke to those things that we early on, as we were defining what the group was, decided that here are the key points, and we stressed the importance of education, the importance of empowerment, both our, again, individual empowerment, but also the empowerment of our families and our communities, and then first and foremost there at the base of everything is healing. Again, healing of ourselves and our communities. So, I tried very hard to listen and to take those things in and then find a way to express them visually.
So let me ask you a question now. You have two faces on each side.
Mm-hmm.
And one face has it looks like the map of Africa on
Mm-hmm.
it. So could you explain those two faces and also what that is in the middle?
Okay, so, yeah, because I talked about the Sankofa. So going through the center of the image is both at the top and kind of in the center of the image are these kind of swirly images that really represent the waves. I was trying to capture the sense of the Atlantic and that transatlantic journey that still connects us to both the space where we live now, but also to our ancestral homelands. I think the same thing can be said of the two faces looking in the two directions. One could be said, the one with the African outline, the silhouette of the African continent looking towards our past, and the other on the left side looking towards our future. I know that at one point I thought about trying to put in there a map of the Americas and realized, yeah, it just would not fit in terms of the dimensions to put that in there. I still look at it and think, oh, it's a little bit off because of that. But at the same time, I think, you know, for me, the more important element was really the African continent. I felt that was really what needed to be expressed most visually, and that said the most about who we are and what we're trying to do in terms of defining an identity. Yeah, so.
Okay, that's beautiful, brother. Yeah, so that's our logo, Men of the Middle Passage.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to read the mission statement?
So the mission of Men of the Middle Passage is to build partnership networks with other community organizations, learning institutions, businesses, and municipal agencies whose focus is the social, cultural, and economic development of underserved populations. And you know, like everything that we did and have done, it was, you know, a labor of love to come up with the words that would best define and succinctly define what it is that we want to do and are trying to do within our community.
Okay, so I had a list of some of the things underneath that mission statement. There's some of the things that have already taken place.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we do is visit the youth prison.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole group goes, and they get a chance to talk about some of the traps that they were in when they were the age of the people that were incarcerated,
Mm-hmm.
and how they got out or didn't get out or finally got out, but what it took for them to do that. And that was one of the important and most impressive things, I think, that we did in terms of looking at young men who thought they were doing the right thing, but it was all a big trap.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they found out they were trapped, you know, well, what do I do now? See? And so we were able to come in and share our stories, our life stories, and give them some inspiration. And I remember one brother, he brought a friend of his up there who had wrote a book, you know, and he was just talking about his life, you know, how he grew up running around in the streets like everybody else, playing games and everything, you know, and how he got caught up in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he had to some point, he had to just say, wait a minute, you know, this is not where I wanted to go. And I want to go somewhere else with my life, you see. And then he changed his life around. He became a professional business person, and he wrote a book about his life, you know. So the thing for me when I went there, I even forget the name of the place that we went. It's way about 2 or 3 hours away somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like about 50 young men that came out to meet us. And they were all African American.
Wow.
There was one Caucasian, one Samoan, maybe a Native American, but all the rest were African American.
Yeah, and you know that's not surprising because we know statistically that we're underrepresented in those places where we really need to be represented. But the prison industrial complex is the one place you can go and find, you know, more than the fair share of black and brown people. So
then we found there was a large population of Muslims. And the parents that came over here, and they started taking up that street life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which was heartbreaking. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, but that's one of the things that we do on a regular basis.
And you know, I think that's, you know, that is consistent with, you know, where we started, because I'm recalling now that very early on in the group there were, in fact, even before we were Men of the Middle Passage, when we were just a collection of men of African descent who were meeting, trying to define a group and trying to decide on whether to be, how and what kind of collective we would become. I know that one of the core concerns from the beginning was how to do outreach with youth and adults who were in the system, and that there were many people in those early meetings, many brothers who had come out of those systems. So it's nice to know that actually the group has gone full circle now and is really actively seeking out, engaging, and seeking to mentor those young men and even elders who are still caught up in that trap.
And some of the other things we do is we go down to support issues at city council meetings, where someone will call us and say we should have some community support shown. So with this logo, we generated some T-shirts with beautiful logo on the front, red T-shirts. And so we would go down to the city council meetings or go to the Seattle school board meetings, where they were trying to pull fast ones on us. And I remember Dr. Felder and Anthony Shoecraft, they would call us and say, hey, come down, because they're trying to pull one on us, But so the point is that the community, the outer community, was able to see that there were strong men in the community that were unified, that cared about the community, So.
Yeah, and who were keeping their fingers on the pulse of issues that impact the community, which is, I think, something that a lot of people don't believe that we do. And in fact, and I don't mean we men of the Middle Passage, I just mean we as black people and black men particularly, that we are not conversant with what is going on in the wider world around us. And in fact, that is far from the case. So. The other thing we do is we bring in guest speakers to inform us about what they're doing. And we've had people come in to talk about health issues. We've had people come in to inform us about finances, how to be better at handling our finances. So we have a brother there who has invited us to come to Africa. And what's so nice about that invitation is that we get our own fare, right? But he said, when we come over there, we're all going to stay at his family's place. Hey, that's the African way.
Yeah.
All about family and community and supporting.
No charge. We're going to be fed and well kept, no charge, with his family. You see, that's a beautiful thing,
Yeah, and I think that strand of trying to create spaces where, African brothers from the Americas can connect with those from the continent, I think that is an essential and vital piece of work that I am looking forward to the group building on, because I think that is a dialogue that has long needed to happen, and it's one of those wounds that is in need of healing. That separation, that is, that keeps us kind of severed from each other. I think I'm very excited about doing anything that will support moving that further along.
And that point that you talking about now was brought out in the Black Panther movie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. I was so glad that movie got the traction that it got the attention that it got, made the money that it has made, because it really breaks a myth that Hollywood has embraced for a long time, which is that if you have a cast that is largely black and the subject matter is not slavery or crime or drugs, there will be no audience for the film, and this film has very clearly shown that you can create a positive, forward-thinking story about Black life, Black culture, and very particularly about African culture, and have it be something that is not only accessible to everyone, but that is attractive to everyone. And that within that story, these filmmakers, you know, took on beyond their mandate to simply entertain the public, that they embraced as they were putting together this project, an understanding that they must have had as Black people, that we want to say something that is going to matter to people from our communities, and that they understood also that you know, that this distance between Africa and the diaspora is one that needs to be bridged, and that was a theme in that film. Really moved me, and again, I hoped that young people seeing it, old people seeing it, people seeing it, would really use it as a springboard to start some conversations across the aisles that really have kind of divided us from each other, you know, I think largely for historical reasons, and you know, centuries of colonization have only you know, kind of calcified some of the issues. I know, you know, when I was growing up, and I don't think it's changed very much now, you know, one of the most insulting things that you could call an American Black person was African. That was looked on, you know, as a kind of disparaging statement, and you know, and I know from some of my conversations with, you know, with African acquaintances that they, many of them have their issues with those of us who are not from the continent. I mean, it's just an interesting kind of pathology, spiritual pathology that just continues to snowball. So.
I'm being told to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We're about to go off the air. Brother Lynn, I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you, Brother Benjamin, for having me.
And I hope that the next time you come to town, we can do another show.
Hey, you know.
And we want to encourage people to look at the address for the Men in the Middle Passage. I hope to have enough time to pull that up so you can see it. And want to come and check us out. Make a phone call and get more information on it. Can we get the back of that card put up there as we leave? I know they're working on it back there. All right, so we want to thank everyone for watching. We thank you, Brother Lynn, for coming. And to our viewing audience, we'll see you next time.